Obviously, we all know about VR games that are exclusive to the medium, and flat games that don't have any VR support. But every once in a while, there's a game that breaks the mold and supports both the VR experience and the flat screen experience with varying levels of success. Today, we're going to be going over the games that try to achieve the best of both worlds. The hybrid VR games that support both flat screen and VR players in perfect harmony. Starting with what is the most popular one, VRChat. VRChat is in the perfect position for flat screen and VR harmony, as there's not like a competitive side to it, except for maybe how many e-kittens you can bag. So VR and flat screen players can play together no problem, although it's not all sunshine and rainbows. The nature of this game being a purely social experience is greatly enhanced by playing it in VR. By playing the game on a flat screen, you kind of miss out on a big portion of what makes this experience so enjoyable sometimes. There's a certain level of social magic you can only really get out of the immersion from a VR headset, and without one, that sort of immersion is kind of lost. But that doesn't mean there's no reason to play on a flat screen. You can still talk to people and hang out. And over the years, options have been added to make flat players seem more lifelike and help them get more immersed in the experience, even without a headset. Things like webcam tracking can sometimes make it hard for others to even notice that you're not playing in VR. Both groups of players really do get a fairly close, perfect scenario, all things considered, and having VR players mixed with flat players has the added benefit of a way larger audience, along with people seeing VR users do cool things like full control of their hands and head, and sometimes that can sell a flat player on the idea of VR just by being around other users who have headsets. So you know what, that kind of is all sunshine and rainbows. I lied! But I know y'all want to hear about some of the less great examples. Some of the straight up butt cheeks experience, so let's not hold your balls any longer than I need to.
Unless you like that.
I hate to do this to a game that is literally already dead, but Rec Room is, or rather was, a VR game at its core, and you could always tell. Being able to swing your arms in front of your face is usually the telltale sign of such a thing. This game did work in flat screen, but its competitive sort of nature in some games made it very, very strange, for lack of a nicer word. For example, in paintball, having two full 6 degrees of freedom hands at my disposal, being able to aim with about as much pinpoint precision as humanly fucking possible, made flat players never really stand a chance. Little Robert playing on his itty bitty Switch with his Joy-Cons that don't even fit in my fucking hand never really stood a chance against somebody who was literally in the experience. The experience was always clearly a VR one first and foremost. But having that flat screen option was a neat addition anyway. Even if it wasn't exactly fair for little Robert playing on a Switch, it was still cool. The one true downside about flat support on Rec Room was that it had negative effects on VR players. Things like UI changes going from these nice clicky buttons to some fuck-ass phone first UI was a big letdown. But overall, I still believe the concept for Rec Room to be on as many platforms as possible was a good one. Hybrid VR games are something a lot of people have been talking about recently, and they're fully believing that this approach is what's needed for VR to go mainstream. And while I personally am not sure about that much, I do definitely see the vision and love the idea of hybrid games. While I definitely believe there to be a place for both VR and flat exclusives, I wouldn't want to play something like Doom the Dark Ages in VR with its constant non-stop action, rapid weapon switching, and need for precision on inputs. I'd like a game similar, more properly adapted for VR, but Doom, as it is right now, has a clear design around utilizing the shortcuts non-VR games use. Things like clicking a single button to reload, using your melee items via a quick stick click. With this high-octane, fast-paced gameplay, if I had to manually grab the melee item off my back and swing it, then manually reload my gun in like 2 seconds, I'd be unable to focus on all the damage I'm taking. Again, that's not to say a fast-paced shooter like Doom couldn't work in VR, just to say that Doom as is wouldn't really work in VR, because the gameplay works the way it does because of the way flat gaming is. Now the same is true for VR games as well. I wouldn't want to play Boneworks or Bone Lab on a flat screen. Because everything is driven by physics, you might have moments where you pull out your gun from your inventory, and because it would play an animation you have no control of, your gun would get stuck on something, and you'd have to press the manual hand control toggle button to untangle it. So instead of quickly pulling out your gun and pulling off cool clips, you're instead stuck to a wall while a nobody rails you. In multiplayer games, this hybrid approach can also cause great challenges for keeping games fair when up against VR players. This is why the best multiplayer hybrid VR games don't involve competing playing like VRChat, or PvE games like No Man's Sky. But the style of game that benefits the most from this hybrid approach is single-player games. Because the game is formed around the idea of only one person playing, the game can be fine-tuned around making each experience the more fun version of itself, instead of inherently limiting certain things in the name of fair play. Take the Resident Evil games, for example. I know that one guy in my comments, by the way, is excited to see a Resident Evil mention. He comments about it like all the fucking time. Back on topic, yes, Resident Evil is probably one of the best hybrid games ever made. We'll use Resident Evil 4 Remake as the example here, but just keep in mind, most of this stuff follows to RE8 on PSVR 2 as well. On a flat screen, you can use your knife to parry, and swinging it puts you in a semi-vulnerable position, free for a nice clapping. But on PSVR 2, you can swing your knife all you want while shooting freely as well, and you can even throw your knife now. This may seem like it makes the VR version an easier game, and to an extent it does, but also has drawbacks as well. Parrying on a flat screen can be done just by pressing the left bumper at the right time, while in VR, I'm actually not even sure if you can parry because that shit is so hard to pull off in comparison to on flat screen. But overall, I would confidently say that the VR version is an easier game, but that's not a bad thing. It's easier because the medium gives you more proper control of what you're actually intending to do. A long time ago, a studio that makes these really intense bullet hell shooters, Treasure, made another bullet hell shooter designed to be skull-fuckingly difficult as always. Nintendo was developing the Wii at the time and used it to test the game. Treasure, expecting Nintendo to say that the game was too hard, was surprised to hear back from Nintendo saying the game was actually too easy. The IR aiming on the Wii Remote made shooting so precise that when playing the same game that was designed around the idea of a regular joystick for aiming, with a device capable of far better precision and accuracy and speed, it became much easier than it was on the GameCube. Not because the game was any easier at its core, but because the controller was so much better at achieving what you were actually trying to do that it made everything so much easier as a result. It's a similar story with VR and hybrid experiences. Generally, I find when the VR hybrid port is actually done right and good, the VR experience is typically the easier one. That's not a bad thing. In fact, it's a really great thing and shows how much of an evolution VR actually is. The fact that we have games like Beat Saber with skill ceilings so high that your actual genuine stamina is a major gameplay aspect at high level play is crazy. There's just no other medium capable of achieving such a thing, except for like DDR or something. So hybrid games aren't necessarily this end-all be-all for VR's mainstream appeal, in my opinion. While it can be great in a lot of instances, having a true, genuine, made-for-VR title can be a lot better adapted for the medium specifically. I still love hybrid VR games and want more of them for sure. Flat to VR's ports are great. Wrath Aeon of Ruin is super fun. I Am Your Beast is getting a VR mode and it looks incredible. Half-Life 2's VR mod is great. It's all good stuff. But in my opinion, it just doesn't compare to those true VR-only experiences. Games like Beat Saber and Boneworks take advantage of the medium in what I believe to be the best way possible, and I wouldn't want devs to stop making those types of experiences. I even believe that Half-Life Alyx isn't really the same without the VR aspect, even if it does have a non-VR mod available. And even though just earlier I mentioned how I love the Resident Evil VR experiences, they're also obviously not made for VR in mind. Cutscenes play on a big screen in a void, some actions cut to a third-person perspective where you watch your character do something. Still great experiences anyway, but they don't quite reach the same level that a true native VR game can. So in conclusion, hybrid VR games are excellent. Multiplayer ones can sell people on the idea of VR by letting them see the benefits for themselves through other VR players. Single-player hybrid games give VR players more fun and big-budget experiences without having to wait for a proper AAA VR game to come out, which, as we know, doesn't happen very often. But even still, hybrid VR games usually come with a clear limitation for one side or the other. Either the flat experience is sacrificed to some degree, or the VR one is. And while that's still totally fine, it's important to mention, as I see a lot of buzz on how the only types of VR games we want are hybrid ones, when in reality, true native VR exclusives that take advantage of the medium, like Beat Saber, still hold a very important spot and are usually the VR games that are most successful. We need both, and I hope more people realize that hybrids aren't this end-all be-all as much as some of us may want it to be. If you enjoyed this video, check out this one where I talk about how consoles have kind of fallen off. It didn't get recommended much since my channel is stuck in a VR algorithm trap, which is fine and understandable, but that video as a one-off non-VR one is still really good and worth the watch. You can also get 10% off the entire Quest store by using the link in the description or using code LOP at checkout. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you next time, fat bitches. Lops and kisses!